there are certain reasons usually that certain teams are finding themselves in the same position every year in the NFL draft, picking in the top 5 or in the top 10. Usually it's due to two things. Number one, not having a franchise quarterback, up to and including missing on a previous first round pick at quarterback, and just overall general failures for years in the NFL draft. And there is no question that when the Jacksonville Jaguars found themselves with the third overall pick in the 2015 NFL draft, they had earned it. This is one of the least talented rosters in all of the National Football League, a team that is poorly drafted for years, and a team that you just really wonder sometimes what exactly their philosophy is when it comes to the NFL draft. So heading into this 2015 NFL draft, I'm assuming Jaguar fans, whoever there are, were actually hoping that things were going to be a little different and that for once this organization could piece together a solid draft, take advantage of their good draft position, and effect some positive change for this organization long term. And I'm here to tell you that for my money, the Jacksonville Jaguars did just that. From a total body of work standpoint, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars had the best draft weekend for the 2015 NFL draft. To me, you're looking at a team that went 3-13 in 2014. Again, they earned that third overall pick. So it was important for them to understand that they didn't need to reach for need like they've done in the past. They just needed to play the board, actually put together a decent board, and just go best player available throughout. Because chances are, if you go best player available throughout, you'll actually fill a lot of your needs by doing that, especially when you're as bad as the Jacksonville Jaguars are. And they set about doing that over 3 days and did a really good job of it, in my opinion. It all starts in the first round. They took Dante Fowler Jr., the edge rusher from Florida, with the third overall pick. Now, you could make an argument maybe that a guy like Amari Cooper would make some sense there. I would make an argument that would have been a lot of fun to see them try and get Todd Gurley to go with Blake Bortles. But when I look at Dante Fowler, one thing they really needed on that Jaguars defense that they've been looking for in their organization for years is an impact edge rusher. And in particular, in Gus Bradley's system, they needed that Leo type of guy that had versatility, that can do a bunch of different things, line up all over the place. And I'm happy to report that the Jacksonville Jaguars got that guy. Arguably the best player available at any position at that point in time, and he fills a huge position of need. To me, Dante Fowler Jr. was clearly a step above the rest of the edge rushers in this 2015 NFL draft. He sets the edge. He's a guy with explosive athleticism, a really good first step, a guy who plays much bigger and stronger than his 260 pounds might suggest that he does, a guy with the versatility that could sit there and drop back in coverage. He's not a bum against the run, but most importantly of all, he can get in the backfield, create pressure. And that's what the Jaguars needed, and that's exactly what they got. They didn't get cute. They didn't pull some fucking Jaguar shit like they did in 2014, taking Blake Bortles number 3 overall for some ungodly known reason that I've yet to still figure out. They played it smart, they played it safe, and they got themselves a really good football player that's going to play a big role and have an impact immediately and long term. The other thing they had to do in this draft, other than maybe just finding that impact edge rusher that a lot of people thought they were going to target in Dante Fowler at number 3, they needed to get some help for Blake Bortles. At the end of the day, you took the guy third overall in 2014. Whether I think that's ridiculous or not is inconsequential, because the fact of the matter is he's your guy. And he's that franchise piece, and he's the guy that you've got to build around now. He's the guy that you've got to help out. And one way you do that is to draft help for him on the offensive side of the ball. And the Jaguars did a really good job of that both on day 2 and day 3 in this draft. Getting T.J. Yeldon, who I thought was the third best running back in this 2015 NFL draft class, in the early portion of round 2. That's exactly where I felt he should have gone. That's exactly where the Jaguars needed to take him. A good matching of best player available, arguably at that time in my mind, and a big need, and also the philosophy of helping out your young quarterback. And you follow that up in round 3, taking a guy in A.J. Cann, who isn't quite the big steal that a lot of people are going to make him out to be. I never got the late first, early second round talk with him. I always viewed him more as somewhere between round 3 to round 4. But to get him in round 3, a guy who could play guard, who might very well end up taking over at center. And God knows the Jaguars could could use a better center. They haven't been able to effectively replace the retired Brad Meester. Maybe an A.J. Cann could do that. And then being able in round number 5 to get such a productive college player, a slot receiver like a Rashad Green from Florida State. I mean, they did a really good job of filling their needs, but not reaching on their board by getting really good value and helping out their young quarterback. And then they were also able to do some good things on defense outside of Dante Fowler. When you look at what Jacksonville is trying to do on defense, you would assume that Gus Bradley would be trying to pattern himself after what Pete Carroll has done with that Seattle Seahawks defense. So you're looking for athletes, you're looking for athleticism and size on that defensive end. And you look in round 4, they get James Sample, who I thought was clearly the better of the 2 Louisville safeties in this draft over Gerard Holloman. They got him in round number 4. They could use an impact safety. They could use another starter opposite Jonathan Cyprien, and I think they got it in James Sample. And then in round 6, to be able to get a guy like Michael Bennett. I don't care if people thought he was too smart. I don't care if people thought he was overrated a little bit. The fact that this guy was still available in the middle portion of in the early portion of round 6, the middle of day number 3, absolutely is mind-blowing and astounding to me. What a tremendous steal for the Jacksonville Jaguars, a guy that I think could line up all over that defensive front for the Jaguars, and I wouldn't be surprised at some point in time by 2016 if he ends up being a starter for them. What a steal. And it was just a draft full of good decisions and right choices where best player available met needs, and they just accomplished so many things. In terms of their best pick, I'll have to go with Dante Fowler Jr. I thought he was a top 5 talent in this draft. I thought he was by far the best all-around edge rusher in this draft. There's a lot of things I really liked about Dante Fowler's game, and I really thought the Jaguars did well for themselves getting him with the 3rd overall pick. In terms of big steals, I got to look to day 3. Getting Rashard Green and Michael Bennett in rounds 5 and 6. These are guys that you would have thought maybe would go somewhere between rounds 2 and 3, or maybe in Green's case, somewhere between round 3 to 4. You got Green in round 5 and Michael Bennett in round 6. This shows you that sometimes certain organizations don't know what the fuck they're doing. And when it comes to the draft, you can see that. The fact that these guys were still both on the board in day number 3 proves that. I mean, these guys are going to be big-time steals, in my opinion, for the Jaguars. And a guy that could surprise is James Sample. When you look at some of the bigger, well-known college names like Fowler and Yeldon and Cann and Green and Bennett, one person I think that slips through the cracks in terms of this draft class for the Jaguars is a guy like Sample, who I think is a rookie starter for them at safety. Overall, the Jaguars I thought were outstanding in this draft. Absolutely outstanding. Well done by David Caldwell, his front office, and head coach Gus Bradley. It was a perfect merging of best player available and filling needs. Again, you went 3-13 in 2014. If you don't think you had needs on both sides of the ball at every position, you're clowning yourselves. They didn't reach mightily for an offensive tackle. They didn't go off the grid. They got their edge rusher without having to sit there and trade the farm for an overrated piece of crap like they once did with Derek Harvey. They didn't massively reach for somebody like they did in 2010 with Tyson Alualu. They sat there and they stayed put, and they just took the best players available. They learned from the previous mistakes, and that's got to be an encouraging sign when you look at this organization. It's one thing to make mistakes. It's another thing to not learn from them and continue to repeat them. And I will say when it comes to this draft, the Jaguars learned from their previous mistakes because they got help for their young quarterback, and they also got some help for the defensive side of the ball. It's a really balanced draft and really accomplished so many things and accomplished, I think, pretty much everything that Jacksonville could have possibly expected to be able to address in one draft. In terms of grade, I've got to give them an A. This is earned. This is deserved. This is not just something where you fall in love with big-name players like Rashad Green and Michael Bennett, and they're much better college players than NFL players. These were guys that were legit NFL prospects that they were able to get in day number 3. They addressed important needs that would help out their young quarterback and Blake Bortles in day number 2. And they got the right players, and they didn't reach at either one of those picks. And then to be able to get that guy in Dante Fowler Jr. that could finally be that impact edge rusher on the outside that the Jaguars have been searching for as an organization for so many years, this has to be an A draft class for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, is this necessarily going to lead to big, dramatic improvements in 2015 for this team? Maybe, maybe not. I don't necessarily know that. Because this is a team that was in a bad situation in a bad way. But could this be an omen of better things to come going towards 2016 and 2017 for this Jacksonville Jaguars organization? Perhaps. Because this is the type of draft class that can change an organization. Well done by the Jacksonville Jaguars.